All right, part 2 for your lecture 4. So I would like to first of all take questions from you to see if you got any questions related to lecture. Anybody? Any part you want explanation? I can pause a little bit longer in case you are still forming your ideas. And hopefully you guys realize I posted some practice questions for your written test 1. Okay, so hopefully everybody got a chance to try. Any questions? Yeah, so I guess if no, what I can do is I can go over quickly about the answers for the practice test. But if you haven't tried and you would like not to really hear the solution yet, maybe you can just excuse yourself for this session here, and then you can watch the recording later. But if you want to hear quickly about some explanation about the answer, you can stay. All right. Let's say this. I kind of cover the answer for each question here, and then we can let you contribute what you think the answer might be before I reveal the answer and then discuss it. Okay, we got 6 questions in total, and don't get me wrong. So these questions are only meant for how to say, only meant for giving you some idea about the formats for the actual test. So the actual test, number 1, might contain more questions because that was half an hour, and number 2, the parts the actual test might cover might be different from this, right? But still within the limits which I outlined in the program, the written guide, the written test guide. All right. So for all of you who are here, you want to tell me what your answer is. So it's okay to be wrong. That's okay. Let me open the chat over here. Or if you want to speak up, you're welcome to. So what should be the answer for this question over here? Give it a try.
The answer here is 0 because I% J is equal to 34 mod 11, which is 4, and 4 times anything mod 4 is going to be 0.
Okay, very good. It's Nathan. Thank you. Thank you for contributing.
That's not actually.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that's right. But in case your fellow student watching the video are wondering about it, let's do that quickly. Okay, so this is rather easy. Let me give you a little tip over here. You will see quite a number of tracing questions, maybe slightly more complicated than this in the actual test. I would say, as I recommended yesterday, it's an open book test, which means you are allowed positive. You are actually allowed to open up the Eclipse if you wish to try the output. However, you want to balance your time, because if you try to run every question and then to see what the console output is, you may not have enough time left for all the questions, the remaining questions, right? That's my friendly warning for you. All right, just for this one here, just rather easy. But Nathan already told you the essence, but let me just for completeness. So 37 over here, and also J is 11, right? So I modulo J over here should be 1, right? Because 11 times 3 would be, sorry, it's going to be 4. Beg your pardon. It's going to be 4. Because 37 it's going to be 11 times 3, and then plus 4 will be 37, right? So this is the quotient, and that's the remainder, all right? And then what about this part over here, right? But Nathan already said, since you're going to say 4 times something modulo 4, and it's very clever, so that's it's going to be a multiple of 4. So for sure, the result is going to be 0. But just in case you didn't spot that so quickly, so J divided by K. So J divided by K, 11 divided by 3, both sides are integers. So it's going to be actually 3, right? 3, and then the remainder should be 2. And then, so now 4 times 3 will be 12. 12 remainder 4 is going to be just 0 because it's a multiple of 4. All right, so the answer is simply 0. All right, everybody okay with this? Armin, are you okay with this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Nathan, you're definitely okay. We got another guy here. Shen, is it Sha? Is it Sen Shay? Are you here? Are you okay with this?
I think his audio doesn't work.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But feel free to speak up. So since we got such a small, nice group over here. All right, let's see question 2. All right, this guy over here. Okay. What about this? Okay. And for multiple choice, notice one thing for the actual test, right? If you see radial button, so that means there's exactly one answer, right? It could be just exactly one. But if you got maybe like a box, like a checkbox, in that case, you will get either this, the checkbox. It can be multiple answers. It could be still one, but it could be more than one, right? So just something you should really pay attention to. But you will see that when you actually try the test on the e-class. All right. All right. So now, any thoughts? Which
Okay,
one
so
contain type errors?
so
Yeah.
okay, so the one I'm certain contains type errors is D, because you're concatenating concatenating one with a string, and then you're dividing that string you've now made by 56. And I'm not sure what a string divided by 56 is, but I'm pretty sure you aren't supposed to be able to. But I'm pretty sure you only get to find that sort of thing out in JavaScript, not in Java. The one I'm
Yeah, so in JavaScript is basically a dynamic language. They don't have a type checker. So I think for Java it's quite different, but you're right. So whenever you're asked about type errors, you should really think about whether the operators are really operating on the right operands, right? If the operands really are of the right types. But Nathan, what you're saying is absolutely right. So here, this guy here, think about here, this part here is going to be an integer. Okay. And then plus is actually overloaded when we set, as we said before. If one of the operands for the plus would be a string, so that means this will be concatenation automatically, right? It will only be a numerical plus, like addition, if both operands are integers, right? That's something we keep emphasizing. And then, so now that means this part over here, when you say integer plus some string, so this will be concatenation. So the result will just be a string. Right? And then I'm just following the order of evaluation, right? Using the parentheses. And now if you say string divided by an integer, so this is where the type error is. You just cannot divide a string value by a number, as Nathan just said. All right, so this is where the type error is. This is the one. Okay. What about others? Do others contain type errors? This one for sure contain type errors. What about others?
I'm pretty certain B doesn't. I don't think C does. Like, I think that.
Okay, let's do one by one. Okay, so for B here, I agree with you. B should be okay. Concatenate, well, again, it's plus, right? So you can see
Right.
for this part here, it's going to be I love. So that one's going to be a string concatenation, I love. And then even though this is an integer, but it will be converted into a string representation. So it will be as if you actually put this guy over here. So this part is okay. So it's going to be I love 1022. Right? That's going to be a resulting string. What about C?
C, I think C should be fine. I think you end up concatenating, like, it ends up being, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and
so
then.
Nathan, a very important question over here. Okay, you're pretty much into it. So why would you think C and D pretty much look similar, pretty much the same, except for one character. The only character that's different is this guy over here, right? That's the only one. So why is C okay, but D is not okay in terms of type correctness?
You're just concatenating. You can put more letters at the end of this string. That's pretty easy. You can't divide the string by 56 because that's not a thing that happens.
That's very good. So basically, the answer is the operator here is a division operator. It's not overloaded. There's only one meaning that when you use it, both sides must be integer. On the other hand, when you do plus over here, one side over here can be simply a string, and the other side may be integer if possible, right? If applicable, right? So this is actually also okay, right? Good. And what about A?
A, I think should like A won't have any formal type error. No.
Yeah, A is pretty safe, I would say. You're basically doing some division over here with some casting, and then so number plus a string. So this means this is also a concatenation operator.
Mind you, I don't see why. Mind you, I think that C is probably like I'm not sure why on earth you'd actually want to write that, but okay.
So say it again. I don't quite get you.
Like I think that C is probably a logical error of some sort, because why else would you end up with this? But would this be the thing you're trying to write?
Which one got logical error? Which one?
C probably has a logical error simply because I don't see why you'd write it.
Well, so here logical error is not our concern. And also when you say logical error, how do you know if somebody doesn't want to write something like this? I wanted to write this because I want to demonstrate that such manipulation is fine. So there's no logical error over here, right? Depending on what my purpose is. So here I'm not trying to build an app. I'm trying to show what kind of types you can play with.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a very contrived example. I agree. But that one there really shows to you when you talk about logic is at a different level. When we talk about types and also syntax, you don't need to worry about logic, right? We do one level at a time.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Don't be too concerned about why would you write an expression like this? I think that the reason I wrote this expression over here is not because I want to build some exciting app. It's because I want to demonstrate what you can write legitimately in Java or not. That's basically the intention. All right, so this one here, we're gonna get only D over here. It's actually got a type error, right? Okay, very good. All right, it's pretty long. Okay. Why don't we try? Okay, so here, why don't you guys type the answer on the chat? What do you think the answer should be? Type, and then we'll check it. All right, take your time. I'll make it larger. I think it might be nice for you to get some experience. Oh, actually, if the following, choose all that are correct, right? Why don't you put your answer over here? I'll give you guys maybe a few, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, okay? So you can see. I hope that's big enough, right? Yeah, put your answer maybe on the chat. I think that'll be better. And then we'll reveal the answer, and then maybe I'll speak about some of them just to give you the essence. Okay, Nathan got some answer. Very good. I'll wait a bit longer. So Armor, and I presume you're reading as well, so you can put your answer as well, so we can also compare. And Shen Shay, hopefully you're here too. You can also put your answer here if you wish. Okay, we'll wait for maybe another 30 seconds, right? So hopefully, okay, Armin, thank you for putting the answer. Very good. And Shane, if you want to put your answer here. Okay, thank you. Very good. And Sherlock, you just joined us, but we are now going over the practice questions. So this one, we are just going over this, but you can join us for the next one. All right, guys, I think that's pretty good. Okay, I think that's the right answer. Okay, very good. I think very quickly, right? If you are able to give the right answer, I think you're pretty much safe. So very quickly, when we talk about B1 and B2, and also B1 or B2, right? So what's really short circuit? Number one is going from left to right for evaluation, okay? you will for the conjunction here, you only evaluate B2 if B1 is already true. If B1 is already false, you don't really need to evaluate B2 for sure. You don't need to, because the overall conjunction will just be false anyway. On the other hand, so for disjunction, you will only evaluate B2 if B1 is known to be false. Because otherwise, if B1 is actually true, the whole disjunction will just be true, right? So that's according to the truth table. And if you actually apply this principle over here again, so what's really important, of course, is to identify these are the 4 correct description. But for all the others, like A, F, G, H, you want to also see why they're wrong, right? But if you follow this principle I just described over here, it should be all right. All right. So hopefully you guys are okay for this question here, right? This one's pretty basic, just about definition. All right. If everybody's okay, let me move on to the next one. All right. Number 4. Okay, what about here? Let's just read the question together. We're considering Java code over here where X is simply declared as an integer. We can assume that, okay? And then we are having some branching condition over here, and then outcome number 1. Otherwise, it's going to be outcome number 2. So when we run the Java code, which of the following values for variable X will produce or generate the following console output, just a single line? Outcome number 2. That's the question.
Well, obviously 0 will get your outcome number 2, because like if X is 0, that triggers the switch that X is not equal 0, that makes it not outcome 1, and then it's outcome 2. If X is 3, that, well, 10 over 3 is less than 5, right? Like 10 over 3 is 3 in Java, I think, so it doesn't work. And 10 over 2 is 5, which is not greater than 5. It's also
So what's your
all
answer?
the outcomes are correct. All of the answers are correct.
Okay, so that's Nathan's answer. Anybody else who would like to try? Anyone disagree or agree? So Nathan believes it should be all of the answers are correct. Okay, Shen Shay agree. How about other guys? If you want to, okay. So Sherlock. So D, I suppose D means agree, right? I suppose that's what you meant. Oh, D. Okay, the answer. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, that's pretty good. Yeah. I think yeah, you're right. That's pretty good. I think the only thing I would like to explain for this one here is about 0 over here. The 0 over here is really important because you would think 10 divided by 0 should be undefined mathematically. So in Java or in any programming language, it should be a crash. However, it is because of short circuit effects. So here, this is a conjunction. So you can think about this expression over here is really meant for guarding the division, right? That's something we keep emphasizing in the lecture, guarding division. And the order of putting this guarding constraint is really important. In this version over here, we're putting the guarding constraint in the right place. On the other hand, what if we swap the order from of this condition here to over here? Well, let's say we swap the order. In that case, you wouldn't get the same behavior because according to short circuit evaluation, you're going to evaluate the left-hand side first, which means when you pass 0, it's going to crash, right? You're not going to get anything.
There's another question. There's another practice questions in this though. So can we wait until we get there?
Sorry, say it again.
That's the answer to a different practice question.
I know exactly. Yeah.
Why don't we until we do that other practice question?
But you know, it's kind of related, right? So I think it's good to mention that. Yeah.
Okay then. Just funny.
So okay, any question about this particular one? Yeah, I know, kind of had a preview of the next question. But any question about this one? I think the 0 is really the main value to understand for this particular one. All right. So number 5, exactly what I predicted. Okay. So now, what should be the answer? Well, the only difference, if you compare 4 and 5, we just swap the order. So now the guarding constraint is kind of misplaced. So this will be not a compilation error, not a type error, but it's more like a logical error. Because when you put the guarding constraint for example, division, well, later on, we're going to talk about how you can guard array indexing. So you should really put a guarding constraint to the left of the expression that you want to guard or protect. Okay, what about this one here? Well, I kind of gave you a halfway answer already, but what about this one? What should be the answer for this? Okay, Shen Shay got some answer here, but you guys can also contribute before I give you the answer. That's okay. It's okay to change. Ash can also got some answer. Thank you. And Nathan got some answer as well. Anybody else before I reveal the answer? Okay, seems to be quite a majority agree. Okay, let's see. Okay, very good, very good. None of the above. So actually, none of the answers, not really above. Okay, very quickly. So now when we talk about 0 over here, right? So now that means you're going to evaluate 10 divided by 0 right away. So it's going to be a crash. So you wouldn't get to either outcome 1 or outcome 2, right? So it's definitely not. And then if you try 1 and 2, you actually see that 10 divided by 1, yeah, it's quite obvious, right? So you will definitely get to will get to outcome number 1 when you try 1 and 2. So you wouldn't get to outcome number 2. Definitely not. None of these. All right. Any question about this one here? This one, of course, is somehow related to the previous one. However, for your test, basically the questions will be somehow in the random order. So somehow, well, if I put these two questions side by side to you, it might be easier to see what the difference is. So you will know better what the answer should be. On the other hand, if I didn't really talk about the previous question first, if I ask you this question directly, you should also be able to tell right away that there's a logical error because the guarding constraint over here is put, the guarding constraint is actually put after the expression you want to guard. So that's really the issue, okay? So short circuit is really important. So this guarding constraint misplaced. Guarding constraint misplaced. All right, very good. Okay, we're now up to number 5. One more. What about number 6 over here? Let's go over that quickly. We have a loop, and then we got a header of the loop. And by the way, remember we said before, so there are 3 parts for the for loop. And typically you must specify the middle part for sure. But for this part here and this part here, you can feel free to actually either move this part out if you wish, or to move this part inside into maybe, it doesn't have to be the last line for the body of the loop. It can be in the middle, depending on what you need to program, okay? And then the question is, how many times will the state condition, so here a state condition will be this guy here, I strictly less than minus 50. How many times will that be evaluated? So when I say evaluate, it can be either true or false because it's a Boolean expression.
Well, okay, it's not any of the others but 0, or like A, because someone decided for fudsies to write a test loop without any incrementation. Which, if you're ever doing that, stop it, please. Why would you ever write this? But okay. So we'll have to figure out whether it's true the first time. So minus 49, is minus 49 less than minus 50? No. So it prints it out once. Thanks, guys.
Okay, anybody else would like to share your thoughts?
If this ever ends up actually being like written down in a program, I swear.
It's 1 because, oh wait, actually no, it's infinitely many times because
No,
there
it
is no
is just 1 because minus 49 is not less than minus 50.
Oh wait, that is true. Wait, so it's never 0 times.
No, once. It's how many times will it be evaluated, right?
How many times will the state condition be evaluated?
Once.
Oh, yeah, once, yes.
Yeah, I didn't
So
actually
Armin,
get that the first
Armin,
time,
do you
though.
see why it is one time? Do you see why?
Yeah, because negative 49 is not less than negative 50.
So what was, yeah, so the only time you evaluate this would be when you try, of course, for every loop, you want to determine whether you should really go for the very first iteration. So you're going to try minus 49 less than minus 50, right? So you got to evaluate that anyway. Luckily, it's already false, so which means you don't even go into the loop. So that'll be only one time. Make sense to you, Armin?
Yes.
Good. All right. Yeah, so this one is rather easy, so it will be just one. Okay, so yeah, I think this one's pretty easy. Of course, in the actual test, there might be slightly more details to be considered, but I think it just as one example. All right, so that's about all the practice questions you were given yesterday. So is there any follow-up question you would like to ask about this? Anybody?
Wait, so how many questions will be on the test?
Sorry?
How many questions will be on the test?
Between 10 and 20.
Or we have 1 hour, right?
No, you got 30 minutes.
Or 30 minutes or
30 minutes. So which means I think of course you cannot answer too slowly. That would be important. So also when you consider Boolean variables and etc., you shouldn't really have the need to refer back to the table for the truth table too often. So we are really expecting that you should really be able to tell quite easily the meaning for the program.
So if for the quiz, if you don't submit by the time the timer runs out, is it just going to submit whatever you have on its own? Or are you just going to
I
get
believe
a zero?
that's the case, but I think it should be you better still submit your attempt. But in the worst case, I believe that's the case.
You believe or you know?
When I say I believe, because I set the option that way, so I believe if E-class work what it promised to do, that it will submit on the attempt that's not submitted. That's what I meant. I believe.
So if it doesn't submit on the attempt, then and I get a zero, if I send an email, will you fix it?
Well, the thing is, you want to submit, right? If you submit, then you don't have
Because
to email me.
you can gain a few, like 30 extra seconds if you make it submit on your own. Then if
You know what?
submit,
I wish the E-class will have this kind of feature, but it's not, right? I mean, once you maybe have taken E-class quiz before, once you start
I've
the timer, it's gonna once the timer reaches 0, I don't think it will give you any grace period. I don't think so.
So it's just submit whatever you have. Well, yeah, but if you have to submit before the timer runs out, and like submitting it takes like 30 seconds. So if you submit
what I recommend is no matter what, you should really leave yourself maybe about 10 seconds. So when the timer is about 10 seconds before expiration, before it expires, you should really go to the last question and then submit. I think that's what you should do.
Because in some courses because in some courses if you don't submit on time, you'll get a 0.
If you don't submit in time, you will get 0.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, I as I said, I chose the option in E-class to say, when the timer is up, any unsubmitted attempt will be submitted automatically. That's what E-class say it will do. But I would say to be
for
safe,
all classes or just this class?
What do you mean just this class?
Like in every single course in university, the E-class
I
will
cannot
submit.
speak for other instructor. I'm not sure how they set up the E-class. I'm just telling you the way I set it up.
So the instructor chooses it. So some instructors choose that you get a 0 and others choose that automatically.
I'm not too sure about it. I'm just saying that there is an option over there to say, do you want any unsubmitted attempt to be submitted automatically? So we just chose that option for your quiz. That's what I meant. Other instructor, they might set it up differently for their reason. I cannot speak for them.
So it's good to get in the habit of just submitting.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I wanted to say. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Peter is asking, would the test questions be like the difficulty of the practice questions? I would say it's going to be more difficult. So the practice test is only meant for you to get a formats, right? And then, as I can see from you guys' response to the question, they are pretty straightforward, but it's mainly to get the idea about the formats. But I think that there are many things we didn't test over here in the practice question. So you would expect definitely many more to be tested in the actual test. Right.
Right. Is there a time limit on for how long your program can take to execute?
Is there, are you talking about written tests or talk about other context?
The programming test.
The programming test.
Number one.
Number one, I think for programming test one, since there's only if statements and elementary like assignment statements, I don't think you should really write into any non-termination unless you use some loops, right? But I think for your test number two and onwards, whenever you write a loop, you definitely got a risk of actually running an infinite loop for sure. Yeah, so I think that's something you got to watch out.
Loop. No, like let's say, no, not your program takes forever to execute. It just takes like a long time, like 5 seconds to execute for one function.
You shouldn't take 5 seconds. You should not. I mean, for the problem like you're solving in this course, it shouldn't take more than 5 seconds. Should not. Yeah, definitely should not.
So it should be, so what's the maximum time you can take for a function?
There's really no absolute value over here, but I think for our grading, we might just set it to be a few seconds. I think for each test case, we are only testing array of size, maybe maximum 100. That should be enough for us to know whether your program works. So if your program takes more than maybe 1 or 2 seconds to really solve an array of size 100, I think it is very likely that you got infinite loop.
Infinite loop. Oh no, you could just have an incredibly slow solution, like you have a for loop in a for loop.
Well, but so I think so that's why you want to also consider, right? When it's not really necessary to use a nested loop, you shouldn't use nested loop. You will want to solve your problem in the simplest way possible.
Okay.
Yeah. But I can still say, even if you actually use a nested loop when it's not necessary, it wouldn't really make such a huge difference when the input size is not that huge. So maybe so let's say if you got one solution with a one single loop, you got a second solution with a nested loop, right? Let's say you got these two solutions. If we talk about array, of size 100, these two solutions should not make any difference that you can tell by your eyes. Shouldn't make a huge difference. On the other hand, if I use an array of size 1,000,000, in that case, maybe we will see a huge difference, but we don't really test your program with 1,000,000 elements in the array. It's not necessary.
Oh, also, if there are no invalid inputs,
something about how do you print out selectively the elements from the array. So I think for this one here, you have to do some conditional, right? So you want to make sure you're basically asking maybe something related to your labs, right? So you want to basically to count how many elements in your array that's actually positive. So for example, you're given an array of size 10, and then 5 of them, 5 elements there are positive. The other 5 are non-positive, right? So you will know that you should really return an array of size 5. But how do you know 5? You want to really first count how many elements in your array that are positive. And then you might just create some temporary new array accordingly, and then fill up the elements. That's kind of the idea. Peter, does that make sense to you? You asked this question. Very good. No problem. All right, guys. I think are we through all your questions? We got any more? Any more questions you want to ask me before we call it a day?
Oh, I have a question. So, are you gonna throw in invalid?
Armin, you seem to have more questions.
Yes. So, if are you going to throw in invalid inputs into our program that aren't in the JUnit test?
Armin, you got
to
more
see
questions? You're unmuted. I thought you wanted to speak.
I am. Wait, can you hear me?
You're fine, right? All right. No response from you. No, I cannot hear you.
Oh. Hello.
You can really?
Like, how about now? Can you hear me now?
I really cannot hear Armin. Are you still speaking? I cannot. Oh, isn't that weird? I can hear me, right? But I cannot hear you. Seriously, I cannot hear you.
Right. So other people can hear me, but you
want to unmute and mute yourself? Want to mute yourself and unmute again? Give it a try.
I can hear me now. Hey, can anyone hear me? Right. So why can other people hear me, but the professor can't hear me?
Well, I cannot hear you.
If I leave the meeting, can I come back in?
Yeah, I want to type your question. I just cannot hear. Yeah, I can come back into the meeting. Yeah, just maybe leave now temporarily and come back.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Hello.
Wow, that's weird. I still cannot hear you. But since like other people can hear you, that's pretty weird. Yeah, please type. It's weird. I could hear you before, so how should you code in reaction to invalid inputs? Well, I would say depending on the questions, if the questions say you can assume, for example, the input is never negative, in that case, you don't have to do any error messages on the negative input. That's something you can simply assume. On the other hand, the question, the method may be that it is supposed to generate some error message on the negative value. In that case, you have to make sure you do some conditional action, right? If the input is negative, you return something. If that's not negative, you do something else. So it depends. Does that answer your question? Correct. Especially if the question itself says you can assume like a certain condition will never occur. In that case, you don't have to worry. So the reason you can make assumptions is to simplify your solution, right? So it depends whether the question asks you to assume or not, right? Anything following up to that? What do you mean ask question on the test? You mean during the test? In principle, no, because these tests are pretty much I've checked them already, so there could be some minor typos. You can maybe take a screenshot and send it to me later. But I think during the test, well, it depends. You know, if I'm beside my computer, I can try to answer you quickly. But I would say in principle, no. In principle. But if you really want to send me an email, yes, you can do it. But if I'm not beside the computer, I cannot answer you in time. So you don't want to rely on that. All right. Any more questions? So should we call it a day? If no more questions.
You can hear me now.
All right, so guys, I'll stop here, and then good luck to your test. And then, yeah, I'll see you in the Q&A after the reading week for your week number 5 lecture. All right, take care.